Hello and welcome to the Rainy Street podcast with Pank and Heggy, where we discuss all things King of the Hill. Today we're going to be talking about the episode Rodeo Days, which first aired on January 6th of 2000 and is episode 12 of season 4. And now here's Pank with the summary.
So the summary for this one is that Joseph and Bobby get into competitive youth rodeo as competitive cowboys, and Joseph is doing quite well at this, winning all kinds of belt buckles, and Bobby is not. So he becomes a rodeo clown, which is a natural path for him, given the fact that he's a spectacular prop comic. And of course, this creates a rift between the boys because cowboys and rodeo clowns just don't get along. And of course, Bobby just finds a way to make it work, and really makes the episode happen. So if you guys want to meet us in the alley, we'll crack a few Alamos and we'll shoot the shit about King of the Hill.
And for our one fan out there who may have listened to some of our old episodes, we did get a cease and desist for copyright content, so we can no longer have the theme song at the beginning of this. So in case you were missing it or feeling like it was a little different, we're on the board, people. We are on the board.
Yeah, the man has removed our monetization abilities on these podcasts. So now we're not going to make millions off the dozen views that we have.
Which, 99% of those are our own. So the episode starts out with Hank and Bobby going out to the country on a propane delivery. And, Hank's talking to Bobby about how if he lived out in the country, he'd be bored within a week. Bobby's talking about how gorgeous it is. They roll up to the farm where they're delivering the propane to, and it is a really nice setting to this episode. It's the farmland has a propane tank that is painted to look like a cow, and Bobby is instantly in love with this.
Yeah, it's got like little wooden legs on it and like a little wooden cow face that they made. So it looks like a real Holstein dairy cow. And Bobby walks up with the gas filling hose and is, of course, starting to do some sort of a doctor routine where he's checking out the cow for its general health and asks, "Oh, has it been premium or are you regular?" And, he's like, "Oh, the truth is, if you're under 40, you don't need this test." Like, he's doing his rounds and checking this cow over, and is not exactly getting the best reception from the cowboys that are practicing their goat roping and calf roping and everything.
And as a PSA, if you are under 40 but are at risk, please do go get tested. And anyways, aside from that PSA, we do see that there is the cowboy's son who's doing a calf scramble, and that's sort of the segue into the fact that the rodeo's in town and leads us into what the storyline will eventually be. It flashes to Bobby recounting the day at the table, and he's talking about how, nobody was really getting his comedy at first, but he eventually got a smile out of Roy, and he was in the zone. So
yeah.
It's just like...
Him and the propane tank were playing off each other, as he says.
He has also, this is Propaniacs. He's got a bit of a history with propane. You would think that Hank would love this, but I think he doesn't like it when his propane tanks are, doing animal cosplay. That's not his...
And this is a business call in front of a client, too. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, we'll goof around when the time is right, but not in front of a client.
Absolutely. So they get it in their heads that maybe this is going to be Bobby's foray into sports, like joining the calf scramble, being a part of the rodeo. And to support him in doing this, it shows them the next day, and Peggy is just wheeling around their little barbecue and mooing like a cow while Bobby's trying to lasso it. And he gets it on the first try, which is pretty impressive because I don't imagine that's easy to do. I've never tried it, but...
No, I've tried to try it, but I had very little success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I grew up around horses and stuff a little bit, and I still didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't know what the fuck, how to tie it and how to throw it and, how to time it so that it closes shut on the thing that you loop it around. So I had no idea, but I tried it a lot on friends and pets.
Were you successful?
Not that successful.
Well, as you mentioned, you tried it on pets, and it's pretty funny because Hank is really like impressed that he was able to last through the barbecue, and he's like, we should use a real animal, but I don't want to hurt Ladybird. And then it just cuts to a scene of Bill on his mower drinking a beer, and just as he's about to take a swig of the beer, you see like the rope come into view and pull him off the riding lawnmower, which goes and destroys his little shrub. And Bobby has successfully like taken down Mr. Dotrieve.
Yeah, and I like that they're so impressed by that. They're like, oh, wow, you're going to do really well, Bobby. You took down Mr. Dotrieve, and he's a lot smarter and faster than a baby calf. And Bill's like, well, maybe faster over short distances. Yeah. Like, that's all he's got to say for himself, just to undo the comparison to him and a baby calf.
Also, I love that he's, like, touched that they actually think he's smarter and faster. Like, it shows him beaming up at Joseph, who made the comment, and it's like, oh, Bill, your standards for praise are so low.
Yeah. So.
We've also learned at this part, sorry, I kind of jumped ahead, but that Peggy did have an uncle who had to leave Nam because he was having rodeo nightmares. So, like, they have a bit of a history with the rodeo, and it can be intense at this point.
Yeah.
So then we find out that Joseph has an interest in joining, and Bobby's like, you should you should go join the rodeo. You just need permission from a parent. And Joseph's like, Dad, can I go to the rodeo? And he's like, sure, son, you can ask your mom. Like, he just like has no authority over this boy.
And these types of things are legit and real. They have them here in Calgary where we are from. And a cousin of mine did like the sheep wrangling, basically the same thing. Throw a lasso at a sheep, trip it down to the ground and tie it, and he was like really good at it, I think. And also sheep riding.
Ooh.
They put hockey helmets and pads on the kids, strap them to a sheep, and let them ride the sheep. See how long they last, and he used to do that too, apparently, and was quite good at it.
That actually sounds fun. Like, I feel like you're just like riding around on a fluffy cloud. For any Mario fans, like when you get to kill that Koopa in the clouds and then you just like ride around in his little cloud, I imagine that is what a sheep riding would be like.
Yeah, and it's a big deal depending on where you're from. And I would imagine if you're from Calgary or Texas or
Montana,
Nebraska, Montana, Dakota, South Dakota, it's probably a big deal for those folk.
We have the Calgary Stampede here, and it is like a world-renowned event, and there's like rodeo and like all of that, right?
Greatest outdoor show on earth.
That's what they say. And last year, thanks to Rona, it was canceled for the first time in like over a century.
Yeah, or for however long it's been. I don't think it's been uninterrupted.
No, there was a flood here in like, I believe it was 2012, which flooded the Saddle Dome and the fairgrounds. And we thought that we were going to have to cancel it. It was only like a month or so before the Stampede. And they didn't, like, they managed to get it up and running for the Stampede. And last year was the first year we didn't
Come
have
hell or high water,
That's
I believe
what they
was
say,
was their new slogan.
Yep, exactly, which you would think. But yeah, so we are not part of the rodeo circuit, but as people who have been around and exposed to it, we can appreciate this episode.
Yeah, it's we have our opinions on, you know what I mean, animals being used for entertainment. But for the most part, we view it as okay.
So this has become a really big bonding moment between Hank. He refers to Bobby being able to lasso animals as a skill. And there is a really adorable like scene where he takes him to a rodeo like clothing outfitter, and Peggy is like, Husky here is like what is most popularly sold. Like Bobby fits in here. Yeah,
the hard part of buying these types of clothes is if you don't want husky sizes. Yeah. So Bobby's like fitting in perfectly. Hank's so happy about it. And of course Bobby comes out in a pair of assless chaps in the middle of the goddamn store. And you can see it through 3 different viewing / fitting mirrors.
Not only does he come out in assless chaps, but he's wearing them without anything in between. Like, those are typically to be worn to protect your blue jeans.
Yeah.
But he's not wearing blue jeans or underwear.
Yeah. So the boy's buttocks is exposed fully in the middle of the store.
From 3 different views. And I actually have like a little side story that I'm going to share about my first experience with assless chaps. So when I was 12 years old, I had to attend a funeral in Nelson, BC, which is a province over. And on the way there, you have to stop at a ferry that takes you across the Kootenay Lake, and it's every hour. Like if you miss it, like you have to wait a bit, right? And so I went with my family, and we pulled up, and we just missed it. Like we were racing, we could see the ferry approaching the dock, and we were like racing to get down there. There was a car ahead of us also racing to get down there, and like these mountain roads are winding, and we pull up just as it's pulling away, and so we know that we have to like stay here for an hour, and it was me and my mom and my sister, and we were just like, ugh, what are we gonna do for an hour? And the people in the car ahead of us, the dude that was driving got out and was wearing just a pair of assless chaps.
Oh my god.
And my mom was like, look away. And I, of course, being a 12-year-old girl, was just like, oh my god, I'm going to stare. And like that was my, like, I was a legend. I got back to school, and that was like my whole experience. Like I was young, I was sad about like the passing of my relative, but I was like, I saw a bare butt, assless chap style. So this definitely resonates.
Highlight of the trip.
Absolutely.
That's funny, actually, that you mentioned that ferry in the Kootenays. I think I may have actually taken the same ferry.
Really?
To go to a small little town called Nakusp.
Yeah, that is in the arena.
Yeah, so I've actually taken that ferry.
On that trip they actually let me steer the ferry, and if you guys are Office fans, it was very much like Dwight when he gets to like use the fake wheel on the booze cruise. Like they were like, yeah, you're totally sailing the ship, and I was like, I'm the queen of the world. But really, I had like absolutely no power in my hands at all.
That's funny. I thought we had heard all of each other's stories by now, but apparently we had. When was this? This?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not gonna age myself, but like 20 plus years ago.
What year? Like two?
Oh, this would have been like 1995 or so.
Okay.
Yeah, like
so much longer. Much later. Yeah, I went in like 2006 or 7 or something. Yeah, we were headed there for a fight. Me and my teammate were fighting on the same card, so our new teammates that we just partnered up with and started training at their gym with actually drove us out there, and we got to take a ferry, which I thought was the coolest. I'd never been on a fucking ferry at that point.
In Drumheller, there's a ferry, so plans for this summer, because I love ferry rides so much. I think they're so much fun.
Yeah, they were. I was like, that was almost the funnest part of the whole trip. Really,
absolutely.
was the ferry ride.
How magical would it have been, though, if I was driving the ferry that you were on?
Oh my god.
You're like, my life is in her hands right now. So it is now in King of the Hill universe, so done with our personal stories here, the day of the rodeo. So it shows the families, Dale and Peggy and Hank, and Bobby and Joseph, obviously the stars of the show, pulling up to the rodeo. John Redcorn, of course, is there. Yeah. And it shows them registering for the events, and Bobby is mesmerized by the registrar's belt buckle. So he asks how he can get his hands on a belt buckle like that. And he explains, like the registrar explains, the only way to do that is to win the competition. Yeah. And then Bobby looks over and sees this really pretty young girl has a belt buckle as well. And Bobby's like, well, how did she get it then? And the registrar explains, she's a buckle bunny, so she got it from being friends with the cowboy. Yeah. And Bobby's like, well, even if I don't win, I can still be a buckle bunny.
And Hank's like, no, you can't.
So sweet and so innocent.
Yeah.
So the actual scramble is it's quick, and I just want to kind of like outline what the scene looks like. So it is a handful of attendants and participants, and they just kind of release the calves that all go scrambling out, and you just see a cloud of dust as everybody's going out to try and wrangle their calf. And then scooting in behind is short, squat little Bobby Hill. And he's like out of breath already. The view of it is shot from him from below, so he just looks very wide and round. And he seems desperate. His face, his mouth is agape. His eyes look very worried, and the cows are just like animated so adorably. It shows all of the cowboys just succeeding in roping and hog tying these cows and knocking them over.
And all these other boys that are being so successful with roping tipping these calves are like a half foot taller than Bobby.
We looked it
and
up.
lean and muscular.
Yes, so I think you had a note written down about their diet that Hank says, where he's like,
Oh yeah. So the going back to before the competition, we skipped ahead just a little bit. We missed some gold. The fathers are preparing the boys for the competition, Bobby and Joseph, and Hank's advice to Bobby is that you're going to be going up against farm boys, but we fed you like a farm boy, so you'll do all right. And Dale's advice to Joseph is to make it a quick, clean kill, and he's handing him a fucking
a buck knife.
buck knife, Bowie knife, and someone, I believe it's Nancy, reminds him that no, they're not killing the animals, they're just roping them, and he says, all right, well, we're gonna need to pick up something for dinner. Like, Dale thought you were to slaughter these animals and bring them home for dinner.
He's an exterminator, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's got extermination on his mind. So back to the scramble, we see Bobby literally scrambling out in like the other cowboys' dust. We looked it up, and Bobby is 4'11", and the typical calf is about 2'6". So the way it's animated, they look like the same size, and it is just like it's adorable. So he's being bested. All these cowboys are just like knocking over these cattle and winding them up, and he's just about to ask Joseph how to do it because he's roped one, but he can't tip it over. And then he goes to he's like, I'm gonna knock you over, sister. And the calf actually ends up like lassoing his foot and then dragging him around by his butt. And I'm like, this is why I don't compete. This would be me. Like, everybody in the stands is laughing as this little calf is just like dragging him around. And this is where we lead to the catalyst that gets him into rodeo clowning.
Yeah, so after inadvertently rodeo clowning for the crowd by getting dragged around by this baby calf, the actual rodeo clowns come in to save him from this baby calf. And they do a whole routine where their butt is on fire and they're running around, oh, my butt's on fire, and the other one throws water at them. And the clown that's on fire dodges out of the way, and of course it hits a spectator, and of course Hank Hill is the spectator, and Bobby is like mesmerized by this. He's like, oh my god, like, I didn't realize this was a part of rodeo. Like, these guys dress in bright colored clothes and play to the crowd and save people from animals that are about to trample them. Like, he's in love. I believe his words are, oh my god. So he discovers at this point that he may not be much of a cowboy, but he's got a hell of a chance at being a rodeo clown.
Hell yeah, this is the crux of prop comedy. Like, they have props. You know what I mean? Like,
costumes?
Yeah, absolutely. So he goes to find, it's Zip Twilly and Chet Howie are the names. We hear the announcer announce their names, and he goes to find them in their trailer after the show. And he walks in and asks, like, he can see one of the clowns is wiping their makeup off in a mirror in the trailer. And Bobby's like, are you Zip Twilly? And the guy gives him some spiel about how, like, he had a vasectomy in the 80s, so I'm not your dad. And Bobby's like, I'm not here for money. And they basically dismiss him. So he requests being a rodeo clown. And they're like, yeah, we're not cutting you. And he's like, no, it would just be, like, outside of, like, he's like, I'm in grade 7, so just be after school while you're in town kind of thing. And they are not impressed with this.
Yeah, and they're like, we've been doing this bit for 20 years, and Bobby goes on to, like, flex on them a little bit, like turning his back to them with his hands behind his back, saying, why does that not surprise me? And he goes on to describe why their routine is so bad, basically, in a very, like, artistic, scholarly type of way.
Yes.
That really demeans their whole act and implies that he's a genius at this type of thing. And goes on to offer them, sort of a deal, like, I'll train you in comedy so you can turn your act around and really make it something special. In exchange, you'll train me with the animals, and, the art of clowning,
The
basically.
ins and outs. Yeah, he says there's a logic to an exploding diaper. Kid cuts a fart. Makes sense. But then there's a scene where the doctor's bag explodes, and he's like, what is that even?
Why does the bag explode? Yeah, he rips apart their whole act, basically telling them they're amateurs at the comedy aspect of rodeo clowning.
And it's funny because they actually like dismiss him and send him back. They're like, go back to your grade 7, which is such a Trailer Park Boys theming thing because like Ricky's constantly trying to get his grade 10. Yeah. And so these boys are just like not having this kid who's like going for his grade 7.
And I love, not to trail too far off, but Trailer Park Boys is one of our favorite shows. And I love that when Ricky does get his grade 10, it eventually gets thrown in his face by Jim Leahy that I've got something you'll never have, Ricky. And Ricky goes, what's that? And Leahy goes, my grade 11. Like that's the one up that just like stumps him. He's like, fuck me, like goddamn grade 11. Like I'll never have that. And that's the sort
Doesn't he get it? Like, doesn't he get his grade 12 later on though?
I think he might, yeah. Or he graduates from vocational school or something.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But Bobby, you know, he's gonna become a rodeo clown one way or another, whether it's with these guys or without them.
And so yes, it shows the family driving home, Peggy and Hank and Bobby, and Hank is disgusted that he has had rodeo clown bucket water thrown on him. Like he actually goes so far as to say he has to throw away those clothes. And Peggy's like, he's like, I don't even want to know what's in that water. And Peggy's like, you don't want to know. Like, I grew up with rodeo clowns and it isn't good. And Bobby's like, where do you think they get their costumes from though? And Hank, to my knowledge, then deploys his one and only joke where he says, I don't know, Montgomery Weird, which is a play on, we didn't know this, but there was a department store that was called Montgomery Ward. And Peggy loves this. She's like, she laughs and she's like, oh, Hank, you should send that into Joan Rivers. And he's like, that's where I got it from.
Yeah, as he's laughing. Yeah, he's like, that's where I got it.
And it's just like, Hank, you're on fire. Everybody but Bobby is like being a comic in this episode. Like, yeah. He kills it.
Yeah.
But listeners, if you can think of another time where Hank has made a joke, we would love to know it. But for me, just off the cuff, I was like, I think that's the only time he's actually like...
He's not a funny guy. It's like my cat, my first ever born cat. He was born a grumpy old man. He doesn't do anything. But when he's playing or being silly, I'm like, oh my God, look at him go. He's so crazy.
You love it.
Yeah, I love it.
You love amping him up. And I feel like that's how we have very, like, often, we have 3 cats, and we often refer to them as King of the Hill characters, and Felix is always the Hank, and Bart is always the Bobby. Mm-hmm. And it's just like... Frankie doesn't make an appearance. He's not. He's like a Dale.
He's like a Dale Gribble. Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
But I just feel like Felix, whenever he's playful in any way, we're just like, yeah, man.
It's so out of character that we're like, do whatever you want. Yeah. Wreck the house if you want. I don't care. This is like fucking Halley's Comet colliding with the moon. If you're a Simpsons fan. This shit don't happen very often.
And it's just very endearing to see Hank be funny.
Yeah, absolutely. I
don't know, Montgomery Weird. So it shows Bobby, the gears are working. So he's driving, he does like a very, like, I don't know, Pink Panther type like little scene here where he's trying to gather a costume because that's one of the stipulations that the clowns have made for him.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even have a costume.
You don't have a costume, you don't know the animals. Yeah. So he's like, well, I'll cover one of those bases and, 2 out of 3 ain't bad sort of deal.
So as they're driving by, they see a pair of striped boxers that belong to Bill Rotrieve that shows him then like having the boxers like they're on a clothesline, and then the next scene is just Bobby with them on his wrist as he's sneaking about the house. So he steals a pair of, I think, Hank's glasses, Peggy's shoes, and then goes into Luann's room in the den. And at first, he like pulls out her makeup bag, and there's Desert Rose, and he's like, pulls out another one, which is Autumn Sunset, and that's the ticket. That's the one. So he is with Joseph, and they're researching clowns at a local fast food restaurant. There's a clown on the, like, outside ordering menu. And he's like, what do you think's funnier, a sad clown or a happy clown? and Joseph's just like, cool it, man. You're the funniest guy I know. Although your dad's pretty funny.
Yeah, why does he think Hank's so funny? Maybe Hank tested that Montgomery weird joke out on Joseph and it really took or something.
Like, I was like, it's so funny because there are sometimes that people think someone's funny that I don't find funny.
Yeah.
Like her. Like, it's like the Anne from Arrested Development. Like, what, is she funny or something?
Really? Her?
Right. So that's probably a good place to end it for episodes for part one of
I'd say that's a really great, because
Yeah.
Bobby has collected his costume. He's about to show up to the rodeo and basically reapply with these quote-unquote low-life drunken rodeo clowns.
Yep.
So that he can become one of them. And he's basically taken the very first step towards becoming a rodeo clown.
Absolutely. And at this point, you know, Hank still thinks that he is a cowboy. Joseph is still doing very well in being a cowboy. So we're just kind of chugging along here. So without further ado, if you guys want to take a quick 5, we will meet you for part 2 in the alley.